Hello and welcome to Frozen Synapse 2 Developer Diary number 12. I'm Ian Hardingham, designer and lead programmer on Frozen Synapse 2, and this week we're going to have a more in-depth look at how the incursions in the game look, and then I am going to answer a huge mailbag full of questions from last week. So let's get into it. Now, in last week's video, I focused mainly on the really open-ended aspects of Frozen Synapse 2. We looked in depth at how all of the factions are AI controlled and how they go around the map doing everything they want to do, and they often try and get the player involved in what they want to do by offering contracts for things that they don't have the time or resources to do themselves. And I got a couple of questions about the core structure of Frozen Synapse 2. How open-ended is it versus how much does it have like a strong central quest line a la something like Skyrim? So we're going to look at that today. Now, the best touchstone for what Frozen Synapse 2 is about at a central quest line level is basically XCOM. In UFO Enemy Unknown and all of the other XCOMs, the game is progressed by the aliens making incursions into your planet, or in the case of XCOM Apocalypse, the game that this game is most closely inspired by, into your city. Everything that you do around managing your base and your soldiers and everything like that happens sort of between the main event, which are the missions, that are the aliens landing. So basically, the incursions that happen in Frozen Synapse 2 are a similar kind of thing. We have a powerful, enigmatic outside force that is coming into your city and causing all kinds of disruption. So as I'll get to in a bit, there are lots of ways in which I go beyond that and do some different stuff to that. But that is the core structure that pulls you along playing the game. Now, where I think Frozen Synapse 2 sort of gets really exciting in a level above that is that when you get an incursion landing, it's not just a mission that you, the player, go to do. It just starts a really big set of drama with all of the factions. As I've talked about before, and as I've got loads of great comments on, this aspect of the game is somewhat based on Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight archive books, which was based around these weird creatures with very valuable hearts called gem hearts, and their place where they always appeared, and a large number of military factions setting up camp around this area and basically having competitions to try and get to these creatures first and to kill these creatures first because they're so valuable. I was really taken by that idea because it basically has a situation where you've got military factions competing together, but not necessarily always in a war-like way. I think it can get very boring when the only two states that you can be in, either at war with someone or you're not at war with someone. I think having a third-party thing to compete over, to have all sorts of etiquette based around that, people behaving badly, but not necessarily so badly you have to immediately go to war with them, is really exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and trigger one of these incursions, and I'm going to show you what happens then. So at its most simple level, you can basically play Frozen Synapse 2 by just pressing play, the play button here, that is currently rendered with a nice little pair of text items rather than a play icon, but there you go. You press the play icon and you wait for things to happen. You don't have to go into all the sub-menus and get confused. You can just do that, as if you were playing something that's sort of relatively more straightforward, like an XCOM. So I'm going to press play here and get a nasty pause while the game does something weird. And yeah, trying to ignore all the work in progress stuff and how janky that entire experience was, we have now paused 8 minutes, 8 in-game minutes, after we press play. We have a big important red action token telling you that an incursion has been detected in the city. And I believe it is in fact here. I have recently asked Rich, our lead artist, to make the colour for Sonata, the incursioning force, to be something more exciting than grey or possibly cream. Not entirely sure what that colour is. Anyway, this is where the incursioning force has arrived, this building here. Now, this is just an important event, and I'm just going to quickly give you some idea of how we're trying to teach people. We want, when you're first playing the game, to click on details, and your lovely assistant says, we're getting new reports of an incursion, blah, 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 placeholder text. and kind of leads you through the process of sending someone over to get the incursion. I'm not going to do anything for right now, because even though this video has started out being about sort of what the straightforward player stuff to do in this game is, I'm more excited about showing you what all the factions do, all that silly stuff. So take my word from it that you can just send your squad over there, and for the incursions that you can get to, you'll get there, you'll have a mission, presumably you will win that mission if you're reloading when you lose. You will get a very, very important, valuable artifact you take back to base. That improves your standing around the world, that improves the level of mercenaries that wish to sign with you. It gives you more money, and basically is a base progression. So you have at its core a skeleton there of just how a normal game works. You have a linear series of incursions that happen around the city. Each one that you manage to successfully attack gives you a real piece of progression. You want to improve your coverage of the city so that you can get to more incursions before the other factions do. And basically, that's something that you can just sort of embrace as the core of the game, and then start investigating all the other avenues, doing contracts, deciding to go to war or annoy other factions as you see fit, as you sort of learn the game. So that's the core. And now let's look at what the factions do when the incursion lands. Now, I can tell you that as the incursion lands, several of the competing factions have sent squads to go and deal with it. This little log window down here, which probably won't be visible most of the time, and it's kind of more for debugging than anything else, but I haven't worked out exactly what to do with it. It shows me that three of the main factions, Safeguard, Forgiven Geometry, and Guest, have all sent strike teams to go and try and attack the incursion. So if we go and we click on these guys, here is the Safeguard strike team, and funnily enough, next to him is the Guest strike team, and the Fortune strike team is over here. Now he's miles away. I don't think there's any chance he's going to get there, but we'll see what happens. So on the first in-game tick after the incursion lands, the AIs send off their people if they feel that's what they want to do. Now, on the next in-game minute, the factions take a bit of a closer look at what the situation is. They can generally see other factions' squads wherever they are, if they're outside, and they say, well, if I'm not going to get there first, I may want to try and get the player to get in the way. So with any luck, yeah, here we go. Safeguard have offered me a contract to stop Guest getting to the incursion. So here we go. Here is the Guest strike team, and we have this little yellow thing above it that says that it's a contract location for Safeguard. So for instance, we could accept that contract and get in the way of that squad getting to the incursion first. So immediately you're seeing we can go to the incursion and just deal with it in a fairly straightforward manner, or we can accept a contract to help, whichever one that was. Sorry, to help Safeguard stop the Guest strike team getting there, for instance. Now, one of the factions on the city level is a sort of cultist religious faction that actually worships Sonata, the incursioning force. They are Blue Sunlight. They actually have the same avatar as Safeguard, so I apologise for that. And what they want to do is defend the incursion. If the incursion had landed near where Blue Sunlight has forces, Blue Sunlight around here, Blue Sunlight would have sent a strike team to basically sit outside where the incursion is and stop anyone else from interfering. Now, because they are miles away, they have offered that out to contract. I'm actually going to accept that contract right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at where the incursion actually is, which is there. And I'm going to try and send my strike team in that general direction. Now, my strike team has arrived, so stuff has paused once again. You can see they're sort of getting quite a few of these labels, sometimes getting in the way of other things. That's a bit of a user interface element that I need to look at. But basically, if we press play, hopefully, yeah, we're going to get Safeguard and Guest are coming along, as in fact are Fortune's Glaive. So I'm just going to pause it now and have a quick look and see whether I'm actually going to get in the way of stopping them. Right, so it looks like they are going this direction. Now, so Forgiven Geometry's strike team are about to meet my guys. And here we go. We've got our little notification that this strike team, so player strike team has encountered Forgiven Geometry strike team on this corner. So if I call moderator Goatpaws, the current placeholder, I now have some choices. I can tell him that he can't come through. I can just attack him, or I can sort of say I'm just saying hi. So I'm going to tell him he can't come through. Now, again, because this is the debug version of the game, I'm going to now be offered the choices of the AI. So don't get too confused by that. It all is very confusing. I've been talking without stopping for the last 5 minutes, so I hope I'm recording this video. Right. So I've said, I'm afraid I can't let you through, my apologies. And he's got two options. I'm coming through whether you like it or not, which then gives me the option to actually attack him or back down. Or fine, I'll turn around. And this little star means that the AI would have chosen fine, I'll turn around. Which probably means, it's probably because this faction has relatively good opinion of me, or just doesn't feel like getting in a fight. So I'll do that. And now he is going to turn around. Now I've come across, again, both of these guys. So if I call the Safeguard, he's irritated, so I'm fairly sure he's not going to let me get away with telling him to go through. Yeah, I'm coming through whether you like it or not, and that's gonna spawn a mission because he's attacking me because he's annoyed that I'm getting in his way. I have no idea whether this is going to load the mission without breaking or being a complete nightmare, but we'll try it just to give you guys a general idea of what's going on. I've been talking for so long without breathing that I've lost all idea of what's going on. But maybe, yes, I'm afraid our troops have not appeared, but this is a lovely map. So basically, there should be some troops here. Maybe you guys get the idea. I'm just going to restart the game. And here we are back on the city level. Something's happened and everything's gone green. I actually have no idea what's caused that. I just tried restarting the game and it was still green when I continued this save game. So it's something more fundamental than just having destroyed the DirectX buffer or something. So that's very exciting. So you guys can just bear with the greenness. I'm just going to end this rather long story. So I had this abortive mission with the Safeguard strike team. But the guest strike team has gone past, managed to get past me. And they are going towards the incursion. They get to the incursion. Blue Sunlight fails the contract because I failed to stop people getting there. And Guest actually have successfully attacked Sonata, and they've achieved the artifact, which is the very valuable thing, for themselves. Now here is the Guest strike team. Again, apologise for the mess of icons. They now have this Artint shard, which is very valuable. And indeed, if we go to the contract screen, I think we'll probably find that, well, basically, we probably would, if we had any friends left, we would be given a mission to try and liberate the artifact from Guest before they get it back to home base. Anyway, I'm gonna abort this description for now. So I hope that was somewhat useful. I don't know if that cleared anything up or made things more complicated. But I wanted to show you how much dynamic activity happens around all of these incursions. These incursions are the absolute core of what happens in the game. They happen all the time. Being able to get to incursions quickly is the majority of what pushes you to get more squads and position them in more places and have greater coverage of the map, and really drives territory in this game. I'm just going to go off on a little bit of a tangent and talk about territory in these games. I was asked about this last week, and I believe someone said something on the lines of, how are you going to avoid the mid-game being boring? Because in all of these games, once you start controlling a large amount of the map, things become boring. Now, I couldn't agree with this person more. That is exactly how I feel when I play a Civilization or an Alpha Centauri. It frustrates me massively. The game is so much more interesting at the beginning than it is when you've painted half the map your color. So this game is not a game about painting the map. You can occasionally own new buildings, but you and the AI are not trying to take over building after building. You're trying to get more artifacts, more shards from the incursioning force. You're trying to get more money. You're trying to get more troops, position them in more places, control more of the road network. But you are not taking over entire districts and becoming so powerful that no one can challenge you. So it was a great question. I was really pleased to have it because I feel incredibly passionately about it. That the mid-game of these grand strategy games turns me off completely, and I'm really trying to stop that happening with this game. This is really a grand strategy game crossed with a game inspired by XCOM Apocalypse, and that leads to something I believe is quite new. And just before we get to the mailbag, to respond to anyone who's asking about the user interface, as I've been talking about, we've got some issues with these labels, the interact menus, there's a huge number of options, and looks a bit terrifying. All this stuff down here is a bit messy. This has not even had one polishing pass from us yet, so this is totally work in progress, and I promise you we are going to make this a really clear game to play. It's important that the depth comes through of the interface, but it is also really important that you're not overwhelmed and that everything isn't really ugly. So we will get to that, I assure you. Now, I'm going to go and get a glass of water and then get to this week's Mammoth Mailbag. Okay, so as always, thank you so much for all the feedback. I had a crazy amount of comments last week, which really surprised me because it seemed like quite a dry video to me, but got loads of great feedback. I read all of it, not necessarily read all the questions on air, but I read everything, and thank you so much. Please keep doing it. So, Phaser Rave asks, can you cancel a move order for a squad if you've already given one? Yes, you can, absolutely. You can change anything at any time, change the route, tell them to go and do something else. And Dundrail has a question about the time handles in game, saying that they should have the exact amount of time that you're waiting printed on them. Yes, they definitely will. That is an oversight on my part so far. Gigitrix asks, will there be a means of seeing enemy movements or projective movements on the city level? I think you can probably see from the start of this video that you have a very good ability to understand what your opponent's squads are doing and how to engage them. So I think the answer to that is basically yes. Where else are we on here? Jean Michael Villancourt, well done for having your full name on YouTube. Excellent. Asks, if you go after an incursion when you're in the middle of a contract, does that give you a penalty? Yeah, each contract has a time limit. It's usually fairly generous, except for missions which are fairly obviously time limited. So I don't think you'd fail many normal contracts for going to do an incursion first. But it's certainly something that you can do and can occasionally happen. Obviously, there are specific contracts that are based around in-world events, and when those events happen, often the contracts are cancelled. Myers asks, can you produce VAT forms that aren't clones of mercenaries? No, basically not. The mercenary cloning system is the way that you get new troops. Let's see what else is going on here. Immortal Sona asks a great question. Can you make contracts for the AI to carry out? Yes, you will be able to do that. That's a feature that I've always really strongly wanted to put in. There are ways of getting other factions to be very submissive to you. There are some pretty exciting ways of doing that, in fact. And if you have some pet factions, you're definitely going to be able to give them contracts that are exactly the same as the contracts that AI factions give you. I'm not entirely sure what it'll be like if you put out a contract and ask one of the competing factions to do it. If they're fairly friendly towards you and you've offered enough money, I would expect that to work. We're really getting to the really exciting meta bits of the game there, when you can basically not get your hands dirty at all and sort of guide the progress of the city by setting out contracts and manipulating other factions. That's pretty cool. So yes, you can do that. Isaac Wildsmith asks if we have an exact release date. So I can't say anything about release dates. I just don't know yet. I will say that I think we're probably looking at summer of next year for the full game. And at the moment, we are not planning on doing an early access. We're planning on having a big closed beta. So anyone that very passionately wants to get involved with that, please let me know. But while early access has worked for us well in the past, I slightly feel it's a bit of a different situation now, and I really do love this game. I think it's amazing, and I want to present it to you guys finished, as good as it can possibly be. We are getting towards starting to really polish up this game now, and I think next summer is very realistic, but that's not an official release date of any kind, just my current perception. Now, Jakey Jake 3 asks about cooperative multiplayer on the city mode. I'm not willing to announce anything just yet, but let's say that I've got some interesting things I'm hoping to announce around Christmas to make the city stuff even more exciting, so stay tuned for that. Magic Duo 1 asks if the AI factions have a leader unit, same as the player. Yes, they do, and if you kill that leader unit, that faction will lose. Now, that faction will be removed from the map. Now, that may be a little bit too easy for the player to do, so we may need to put the faction leader in some kind of sealed room or something, so you really have to clear the level. So if there's a balance problem, I'm going to have to get to that, but right now every single faction has a leader, and if you kill them, they are taken out of the game. EdboxLP asks how complex the reasoning of the factions behavior basically is, how they feel about you. We've been working on this today, and the factions take into account if one faction is looking at another faction, deciding how they feel about them, they look at their ideological similarities or differences. So they look sort of politically how they feel about what that other faction stands for and represents ideologically. They look at that faction's actions towards them in the game so far, and they look at that faction's actions towards their friends in the game so far. They then use that to produce a mood of how you feel about this particular faction. That's combined with your relative military strength to come up with a target diplomatic status. So do you want to be at war with this person? Do you want to be really good friends? And the diplomatic status affects high level decision making for the AI, and the mood, which is stuff like conciliatory or professional or magnanimous, that affects their minute-to-minute decision taking. So when I showed you earlier the conversation with the other faction leader when we met on the road and about which decisions he takes, his mood defines what decisions he makes there. Each AI faction has a completely different set of moods based on what's been going on in the game and how everything is working between you two factions. It's a really, really nice system, and it's somewhat akin to the mood system that Alpha Centauri had, but a bit of an advancement on that. Let's keep going. John Morney says that he thinks there should be a tutorial for showing that the player can subvert the contract systems if he wants to. I think that's interesting. You definitely want to flag that up. And keeping going, yes, if you would like to take part in the Frozen Synapse 1 map making final tournament, you search that up on our Facebook or our Twitter or our forums. Basically, we have entrance to the closed Frozen Synapse 2 beta as a prize for a big tournament and a map making contest. And Neophelis has made a Frozen Synapse 2 map by knitting it in real life, which is mad and awesome. So just go online for the pictures of that. And then 2 people ask me if I've ever considered using machine learning for AI. I haven't really. I think that's really hard to leverage properly in a game. But as post-release FS2, I could definitely imagine adding in some more AI quirks. That could be quite exciting. So yeah, I think we'll draw this mailbag to a close. We have quite a lot of other questions, but I might leave those for next week. As usual, I hope that I've given you guys some kind of idea of what is going on in this crazy game, and all of your feedback is helping. Please continue giving it. Do bear in mind that we will make the user interface work. We will make it clear enough. So don't spend too much time talking about the stuff there that doesn't work for you, because that's all really work in progress, and I know it's terrible. I'm really interested in how you guys feel that the game is going to play out and what elements of that you like and you don't like. So thank you, as always, for listening to me waffle, and I will be back next week with some other new thing I've been working on. And until then, goodbye.